Hello and welcome to In Touch with Durham County. I'm Deborah Craigray, Assistant County Manager. I'm joined by my co-host, County Commission Chairman Michael Page.
Hello, Deborah.
Hi.
It's good to be back. Welcome to our viewers today. As you know, this is our TV show to interview our Durham County department heads, staff, and community partners to share important information about many valuable programs and services.
We're delighted to welcome our new county manager, Mr. Wendell Davis. For the next half hour, he will share thoughts about this community and his vision for Durham County. Chairman Page, let's begin our conversation.
Let's begin. Mr. Manager, welcome to In Touch. And thanks for being here today. And I want to remind you that our viewers that this is your second tenure at Durham County. And you first joined us about 14 years ago as a deputy county manager. Is that correct?
That is correct, Mr. Chairman. And I want to thank both you and Deborah for hosting me today.
Wonderful. So an opportunity at North Carolina Central University lured you away to academia where you enjoyed professional success. What led you to apply for the county manager's position?
Well, public service I've been in all of my entire career. In fact, I've spent the last 27 years working in public service. And so coming back as the Durham County manager, it seemed like the natural progression as it relates to my career ladder.
Right. How did spending almost 3 years in the academic environment impact you as a professional administrator? And what did you learn that will serve you well as our county manager?
Well, it gave me a very different perspective, particularly for the educational arena. You know, too often times, you know, from where we sit on the county side and given our relationships with our friends in public education, we are often sort of sitting going back and forth about how much money we are going to give the public schools and issues of that nature. Quite frankly, having gone to the other side, I have a better appreciation in respect to what it takes in order to deliver successful human beings. And so, you know, if you think about it, it takes probably about, you know, 15, 20, 25 years to deliver a doctor, a lawyer, or an engineer. Those things just subsequently don't happen overnight. And there are costs subsequently that's associated with them. And so I now have a better understanding of the educational components and, quite frankly, believe that those things that I learned in higher education will give me the opportunity to be a better leader.
Very good. Well, prior to transitioning from the academic world back to local government, I understand you did what you described as a listening and learning tour in our community. Why was that important, and what are some of your highlights from that journey?
Well, it was extremely important because, you know, you can't operate doing this kind of work in a vacuum. Quite frankly, when you're a public servant, you've got to understand just that you're serving the public. And so it's important to understand, you know, where our citizens stand, what the thoughts and ideas are around our business and industrial community, how people in public education see us, and to have a good, thorough understanding of what the lay citizen thinks as it relates to how we do service delivery and other things. And so that's why I deemed it necessary and important to go on that listening tour.
All right, all right. Well, during your recent swearing-in ceremony, you spoke passionately about your personal background and how that steeped your approach to public service. Can you share some of those remarks with our viewers here?
Well, I absolutely can, Deborah. And one of the things that I talked about there was, well, I talked about a number of different things, but most importantly was the transformative effects that education has in fact had on my life and what it can do in respect to uplifting our entire community. That old adage, you know, the rising tide lifts all boats. Well, if we can figure out, you know, good ways to go about participating in a model that affords all of us an opportunity to help the next generation of young people coming along, then, you know, I think that it's good for all of Durham and our state.
Residents may recall that during your former tenure with Durham County, one of the areas of responsibility that you had included carrying out the commissioner's vision for the physical facilities for the county. And I think some examples will include our regional library system, our new human services building, and our new courthouse. Talk about that body of work and how it informs your current work as the county manager.
Well, those were all fun and exciting projects, and I had the good fortune and blessing, I guess you could say, of coming to Durham at a time in which the county had just embarked upon its new facility master planning process. Having done so, while the libraries were not part of the facility master plan, certainly the courts as well as the human services complex was a big part of that. When I initially came, Durham County had our employee base in about 45 to 48 different locations, most of which were in leased space. And so it was our hope and the desire of the community and, of course, the board to make sure that we got out of that leased space arrangement and got into something that was owned by our citizens. And so we had a good time doing that work, quite frankly. It was some very informed work. Some of it was some very heavy lifting as we did everything, and as I was responsible for working with a team of people to do everything from, selecting architects to going out and actually acquiring the land to, sort of negotiating some of the contracts and getting the RFPs on the street and bringing in the general contractors. And, I'm proud to say that in light of that window of time, although it seemed like a very long time, we can say today that we enjoy those 4 brand new regional libraries, 25,000 square foot facilities that are, quite frankly, within 5 miles of our residents. We can say the same thing about our human services complex. I feel very proud when I go into that building now because it brings a sense of pride and integrity, and even for those that we serve in there, I think it speaks volumes in terms of who our community is and, more importantly, what we stand for in Durham.
It's not unusual for new administrators to access the organization and begin to consider realignments and restructuring. Is that something we might expect from your leadership?
Well, I think, Chairman Page, it is within reason to. One of the things that I've spent the last few weeks doing is moving throughout the organization, talking about my vision for the government. The Board of County Commissioners, about 2 years ago, just prior to my leaving, embarked upon this journey to build and adopt a new strategic plan. And 3,000 of our citizens participated in that process. Having done so, they identified about 4 different goal areas, as you well know, in the area of community and family prosperity enrichment, environmental stewardship, health and well-being for all, and a safe and secure community, and, of course, efficiency. What I've told the staff is essentially this. We are going to embark upon a journey to have our strategic plan process go strategic plan 2.0. And what I mean by that is essentially this. One of the most difficult things that most communities are oftentimes challenged with is measuring the results of their goals and objectives. And so I want to put some serious effort behind a measurement system that will be coupled with our strategic plan and tied to our resource allocation that will hopefully give us the opportunity to really determine how well we're doing on our outcomes as it relates to the goals and objectives that the Board of Commissioners and our community has laid out. And so while our organization, when you look at our organization chart, in many respects, it's laid out in sort of 4 different functional areas. I think that if we are going to create a system of accountability, one of the things that we need to do is to make certain that our organization chart is in fact aligned with our strategic goals and objectives so that we can create that accountability and, of course, get the desired outcomes that we are after. So the basic answer to your question is yes, you can probably anticipate some reshifting of resources and seats and things of that nature in order to better position ourselves to deliver the outcomes.
Very great idea, though. This question might have come up recently. Would you talk about your overall management style and the qualities you value from those you work with and you work for?
My overall management style is very simple. I'm a participatory manager, and I think that anyone that you will meet that's ever worked with me will tell you that. I like getting folks in the room. I like having a tremendous diversity of ideas. I like going back and forth and pounding on the table in order to get the best out of everyone. We were in a staff meeting just the other day, and we have several young people. And when I say young people, I mean I'm 51 now. These folks are probably in their late 20s, early 30s. And I asked them, I said, what are your thoughts and ideas, about this particular subject? And some of them kind of peeled back in their chair and almost as if they were surprised that I was asking for their opinion. But I manage that way because I believe that everyone has value to add to any situation and circumstance. And the thing that we have to be mindful of is that this government that we're running, this community that we're building, and this future that we're preparing for is actually for them. So it's very important that I get input from all levels of the organization. It's very important that I engage. It's very important that I position us to be the best that we can be. And I think that you can only do that by essentially keeping your ear to the ground and afford people the opportunity to get their ideas, creativity, and innovation on the table. And you do that by essentially asking for engagement. Okay.
You've been back with Durham County a little over a month, and in addition to preparing a new budget, what else have you focused on?
Well, I've been spending a lot of time working on the budget. I've been spending not as much time moving around the organization and getting to the departments as I'd like. And I've basically not been able to do that because from the minute I walk in the morning until I leave at night, every hour, just about on the hour, there's been meetings. And most of those meetings come as a result of many of our stakeholders in the community. They want to come, they want to talk, they want to, make sure that I understand their issues and that their concerns. And and some of those meetings have essentially been congratulatory meetings. But, at the end of the day, it's been very good. And so I've spent my evenings at 10 and 11 at night getting my email done because I'm in meetings all day, and I spend my weekends working on my budget message.
Well, we're having a great discussion with our new Durham County manager. We're going to take a quick break and hear some good announcements, and when we come back, we're going to continue part 2 with a conversation with our new Durham County manager. Stay with us.
I don't know what's happening. Start a new chat. What did I do? Okay. Wow. It's so weird.
Hey! Hi!
Oh my gosh. Hi! God, I don't even know what to say right now. I'm so nervous. Gia, you're so big. Come closer to the camera. Wait, now you're in my face. That was so good.
Thank you for calling your GED Pep Talk Center. All right, now, are you ready for your GED Pep Talk?
Being nervous is okay. It just shows that you're serious about getting your diploma.
All right, listen, we all need a little nudge sometimes. I don't function without coffee in the morning, but it is going to take more than a double mochaccino to help you here.
A lot of things are scary. Heck, I'm scared of clowns.
No quiero oír. Danny, no lo puedo hacer. Quiero oír. Danny, lo voy a hacer.
DMC, liking your pep talk style.
Just keeping it real, Debs. Just keeping it real.
Louder! Louder! I'm gonna get my GED! Come on! Get your GED! Hey. Keep it down, Baba.
Whatever motivation you need, we've got a pep talk for you. Get your GED pep talk and find free classes at yourged.org.
Kids will spend 8 minutes decorating their little brother.
Brushing for 2 minutes now can save your child from severe tooth pain later. 2 minutes, twice a day. They have the time.
Welcome back. It's our pleasure to continue our conversation with the new Durham County Manager, Mr. Wendell Davis. Chairman Page, let's resume our interview.
Let's begin. So, Mr. Davis, recently you shared with our administrative leadership and commissioners a presentation called Governing in an Age of Ill-Defined Challenges. We will get into some of those specifics in a minute, but I wonder if you would briefly summarize that point of view.
Well, in a nutshell, this age of ill-defined challenges that I was speaking about, quite frankly, deals with a couple of three things. First, when you look at the educational landscape in terms of issues like academic achievement, low academic success in our public school systems, when you look at sort of the state of poverty and crime and in our given communities, and when you take into account issues like social and economic mobility. All of those have been challenges for a very long time and remain challenges, quite frankly. And one of the things that I've talked about is essentially looking at new ways of approaching these challenges.
So you suggested that this is a time of challenges and opportunities in our community and beyond. Would you like to elaborate on that, perhaps?
Well, yeah, I'd be happy to. We'll take the educational landscape just sort of as a case in point. When you look at where our country ranks in overall educational performance, for example, we are 14th out of 34 countries in respect to the overall reading skills. We're 17th out of 34 countries in terms of science. We are 25 out of 34 countries in terms of mathematics. And so that has created some real problems for us in respect to both our competitive and comparative economic advantage as a nation. I think if you look at those statistics and if you were to cull them down to the state level and to the local level, all of our communities across the country are confronted with many of those same issues. And, when we talk about issues like poverty, when we talk about issues like crime, even when we talk about the social determinants that impact health, all of those things at the base of them is essentially how good a job we do at educating our citizens. And, one of the things that our public health director, Ms. Gail Harris, had done, and she and I talked a great deal about this, she had shared with me sort of the health impact model just prior to my coming. And basically what that health impact model does is it looks at the factors that affect health. And, what the graphic illustrates is basically this. You can eat and be as physically healthy as you want to. You can go and get your blood pressure checkups. You can get your cholesterol and diabetes checks. But at the end of the day, what she basically talks about in that model is essentially this. It is socioeconomic factors that has the greatest impact on health. And so, poverty, education, housing, inequality, all of those things, we have an opportunity to make a real impact if we get the educational piece right, because that's how lives are in fact transformed. I often tell my story. My family was from eastern North Carolina, little town Halifax, in Halifax County. It was one of the third lowest wealth counties in the state during the time when I came through the public education system. But subsequently, the education that I received at a place like North Carolina Central University and the University of Illinois has afforded me the opportunity to recognize a quality of life that I otherwise would not have had an opportunity to recognize had I not received that education. So education has the most transformative effect, I think, on anyone. And if we can figure out how to get that piece fixed, I think a lot of these other social determinants we will be able to really get at.
Those who attended your oath-taking ceremony in April may remember some of the key points you touched on, such as education and poverty, health, and economic and social opportunities. Highlight those areas, if you will.
Well, do you want me to talk about it from the perspective of let me make sure I'm clear on your question.
Well, perhaps maybe how you plan to attack those issues in terms of our community in the coming year.
Well, I think there's a myriad of things that we have to look at. One, we have to be very, very effective collaborators. You know, the school superintendent, it's not essentially just his or her responsibility to educate our kids, nor the school board. It's not the chief of police sole responsibility to solve crime. It's not the person who's doing economic development's sole responsibility to make sure that the issue of social mobility and wage and income earnings all occur. We all have a collective responsibility. And so what I'm interested in is developing a collaborative model that gets the right brain trust at the table and all of the right stakeholders to look at different ways of attacking these problems and challenges. If you look at, just as a case in point, we're talking about a big poverty initiative in our community today. All right? So if we were to go back and if we were to look at poverty statistics back when we had the war on poverty in the 1960s, I would venture to argue that those statistics have not changed a great deal if you look at today. We have a lot more people who are living in poverty, of course. If you look at things like the educational achievement gap, which has been a running issue for probably as long as we can remember in this country, the reality of it is that that gap has probably not moved in respect to what we seek to achieve. And so what that suggests to me is that we've got to look at some very different approaches in respect to how we go after these issues. And let me tell you one of the things that I think that we're going to do in light of the strategic plan that I talked about earlier. I spent a lot of my formative years in government growing up around the D.C. Beltway and had the opportunity to work in a lot of those jurisdictions and had the occasion to meet a gentleman by the name of Harry Hattrey, who worked at the Urban Institute at that time and spent a little time working with Harry. Harry Hattrey used to have a saying. He says, "What gets measured gets done. What gets measured gets done." And so I've been talking to my staff and all of the department heads over the last several weeks when I could spend time with them when I wasn't in meetings, essentially talking about the need for a performance measurement system. You know, we deal with a lot of very ill-defined challenges that they don't have simple solutions like the engineer works with. You know what I mean? With the engineer, 1 + 1 is always going to be 2. Well, our problems that we're trying to solve are not that simple. And so we need to, one, have an understanding of what we're doing, and we need to be able to count what we're doing. And so what I mean is, going forward, and I've told my staff this, I said, come July 1, we will spend a lot of time developing performance measurement systems so that we in turn will be able to gauge, quite frankly, what it is that we're really doing. I want to take, at the department level, each department budget, I want to identify the various and respective programs in each of those department budgets, and then I want to undergird each of those programs with input measures, with output measures, with efficiency measures, with effectiveness measures, with service level measures, and ultimately outcome measures. And it's the outcome measures, quite frankly, that you would be most interested in, because that tells us how good a job we are doing at going after those things that are important to our community, as stressed and emphasized in our strategic goals.
So our city and county governments, along with many other community partners, are now engaged in addressing this issue of poverty. Why is this effort so important at this time?
Well, if you look at our community, just in general, you know what the poverty statistics are, and they're north of 20%, so I don't have to talk about that in particular. But I think one of the reasons that it's even more important is because of something that's recently happened. There's a young lady, I think her last name is Ms. Appleton, who did a study at the University of North Carolina, and quite frankly, what she was looking at was the most distressed census tracts in the state. In doing that study, basically what she found was a couple of things. When you look at the 13 most distressed census tracts in the state, Durham County and Mecklenburg County had census tracts where poverty and economic distress was higher than some of the poverty levels that we saw in some of our most rural counties. And this is within our urban borders. And so as such, what it means is that we need to be paying attention to this. You know, Lester Thurow, who is one of my favorite authors, you know, he wrote a book several years ago. It's called The Future of Capitalism. And in that book, basically, he talks about the need for certain social investments in things like public education. Now, when you have poverty that's that grave in any given community, what he argues is basically this. If we don't figure out how to fix these type social challenges in our country, then effectively what we're saying is that we're willing to create a third world society inside of a first world society. And subsequently, you can't build enough gated communities, you can't build enough jails and things of the like in order to get away from this problem. Common sense prevailing, it means that, you know, we need to be investing in our human capital. Just as importantly, when you think about it from an economic standpoint, it just makes sense. You know, there's a tremendous amount of job creation that's going on, but we're in an era of man-made brain power, which effectively means that, you know, we have all of these high-tech jobs, but we're not equipped with the right skill sets in order to take advantage of these job opportunities. And so when we get, again, this piece right in terms of developing the skill sets, then we begin to solve a lot of those social ills.
Well, I think we've had a very lively discussion today. We're about out of time, but I'd just like to ask you to just share one final thought with our viewers and our community. Well,
Deborah, Chairman Page, I'm most excited about being here in this role. Public service is extremely important to me. Quite frankly, it's my passion. I think that, you know, it's extremely important for us to make preparations for the next generation. And as I often say to folks who are my age, I said, look, this is important work that we should be doing, but it can't be about us. It has to be futuristic, and we have to be thinking about those who are following us.
Oh, very good. Well, thank you so much for what you're doing, and we wish you a long and successful career, and we're going to have you back on the show real soon.
Absolutely. We look forward to working with you.
Thank you, and I'm delighted to be here.
Good.
Right.
Well, we've had another great show.
Another great show. And thank you, Deborah. I can't wait to see what we'll tackle next time.
Yeah, well, I'm sure we'll come up with something interesting.
That's right.
On behalf of all of us at Durham County Government, thank you for joining us, and have a great day. Don't forget to follow Durham County Government on Facebook and Twitter.